Hey BoLS fans, AdamHarry back again with another BoLS review. Today I have the Bolt Action Rulebook. This is the World War II wargame Bolt Action by Osprey Publishing and Warlord Games, as you can see here. This is the hardcover rulebook. There's the back, as you can see here. It is MSRP on this is $34.95 American dollars. It's 216 full color pages. Bolt Action itself is a D6 system, and it has a couple of unique things that make it stand out from the rest of the pack. It has a special order system and modifiers to hits and stuff like that. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive on in. As you can see here, it's very well put together in terms of quality for this book. I'd definitely say it's top-notch quality. Full color all the way through. It is hardbound. The binding on it is really nice, really well done. We get into the content section. It's very straightforward. This is a rulebook. It is very dense with a lot of information, but in a good way, I think. It's laid out very well, so it's easy to find. And you got your intro, your basic supplies, talks about tape measure, dice. It is D6s. D6, so if you've got a dice cube at home, you're already ready to go. Conventions of war, units, types of units, stuff like that. The turn, it talks about the different orders, which makes this game really cool. The movement, shooting, weapons, close quarters, headquarters, and then it gets into unit special rules for those units. Artillery, vehicles, buildings, that's all covered as well in this book. It talks about playing a game and how that works, and it's got 6 scenarios for you, and then if you want to kind of make up your own, it's got extra scenario rules and stuff like that. For selection, what's cool about this book too is it has a good chunk of the rules is actually devoted to the army lists. So when you're first getting started, you really just need this book. You don't need to buy the extra codexes or army books, whatever you want to call them. But this will get you started. Those are for later on. It actually covers the German forces, the United States, British Commonwealth, and Soviet Russia as well. So you've got a lot of stuff, and then it goes over a timeline, so it's got a bit of a historical context for you as well, and then appendix, and those two which covers war games and history, and appendix 2 is multiplayer games, and then a rules summary, which just kind of helps clean it up. Now I'm not going to go through this page by page because it's over it's 216 pages, and I'm not going to flip through each one, but I'm going to cover the big sections. Intro, pretty straightforward there. Basic supplies, again we cover that. It's your tape measure, dice, markers, how those work. This game does use a penning mechanic, which basically makes your guys worse at what they need to do as far as the orders that you give them, and the orders include fire, advance, run, ambush, rally, and down, like get down. So conventions of war, this just talks about basics of measuring, how to measure distances, how to draw a line of sight, stuff like that, table boundaries, all that fun stuff. We get into the units, and it talks about the different types of units, infantry, vehicles, and artillery, and then we get into the turn sequence and how that works. The turn sequence in this game is actually really cool. Basically, for each unit that the player has on the board, they get 1 order die, and that order die goes into a hat or a cup or a box, however you want to look at it. Then you shake that up, and to determine who's going to go first for that turn, you pull the die out, and whoever gets the die, they get to activate 1 unit with that die, and then that unit does their thing, and then the next player, and then you draw again, and you can run into a scenario where one person gets to go a couple of times in a row. It's going to be very rare, but it helps balance out the game, I think, when you start playing. It can tip very quickly though if somebody gets all their guys blown up. So, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. The orders we've already touched on. I'm going to go over this real quick again. Fire, so exactly what it sounds like. You fire at full effect without moving. Advance, you can move and then fire. Run, there's a 3rd order. You can move at double speed without firing. Also used to get into assault. Ambush, no move or fire, but you wait for the opportunity to fire. Rally, no move or fire, but lose D6 pinning markers. And then down, no move or fire, but gain an extra -1 to be hit. So if you're getting shot at, you go down, you're ready to rock and roll to not get shot. So that's a plus. Pinning, how this works, this is another cool mechanic. Every time a unit is fired at by an enemy unit, they suffer 1 or more hits. As a result, place a single pin marker next to it. So if you keep getting shot, you keep adding pin markers, and then for each pin marker, it lowers your morale value by 1. And then that has an effect on being able to actually execute specific orders. And then of course that kind of goes through some of the cool mechanics of the game. You can actually pin an enemy unit so they can't fire back or stuff like that. So it adds some tactical options to the game. Instead of just trying to wipe out a unit, maybe you just want to pin them so you can do something else. So it's pretty cool. Goes through that, and then we get into ambush and down. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward too. They just don't move, and then they can shoot if it pops up. So we'll get into the movement. That's also pretty straightforward. It goes back to the measuring. That's just going to be using the tape measure, and they talk about the different terrain and how that affects movement. So pretty straightforward if you played a war game before. Not too much. One of the cool things about this book, if I could take a break for a second, is all the historical context that's actually poured into this book, which is really cool. I really appreciate it. I'm kind of a history nerd myself. I love these little boxes, the little top secret boxes. They talk about the different weapons, different tactics, different personalities during World War II. It's just a little bit of history thrown in there to give the game a little bit more meaning, a little bit more context, which I really appreciate. Like this one again is about the Vickers machine gun, and it just gives you a little bit more info about the machine gun and kind of a little bit of a history lesson there. It's not super important to the game, but I think it is a super nice touch to this type of a war game. So really cool. Again, movement sections talks about shooting, the best tank of the war. So again, more top secret stuff, just more cool historical context. The shooting rules are very simple. You declare a target, target reacts, measure range and open fire, roll to hit, roll damage, take casualties, target checks morale. That's pretty straightforward. What does that mean? Well, just like this, you check line of sight. All the models in the same unit can shoot through each other, but models that are in separate units cannot fire. You can't fire past friends here, or so, with a 1-inch gap. So it says here models A, B, and C can fire, but this guy here is drawing a line to a model through a friendly within 1 inch and may not fire. So the rest of the units can't fire. Firing past armored friends. Their weapons can't possibly damage it, so you can fire past friendly tanks, no problem. Roll to hit. You basically hit on a 3+ in this game, so it's super simple. There are to hit modifiers though, which modify that basic 3+. So those modifiers, shooting at point blank is a +1 per pin marker on the firer. Again, that's why the pinning is so important. So you start stacking minuses. Long range is another -1. Inexperience is a -1, so that's your rookie troops. They're -1. Firing on the move. So again, those two different orders: fire to full effect versus advance, fire and move and fire. It's a -1 to hit. Target is down. It's a -1. Target is a small unit, -1. Target is in soft cover is a -1. Target in hard cover is a -2. So this game is super simple as far as being able to shoot. Makes a lot of sense. You hit on a 3+, and then you apply any modifiers to that 3+ to see if you hit. Rolling the damage, you check the damage value here in the table, right here, and then you basically just roll to see if you do damage. So pretty straightforward. For the heavier armor stuff, you check the weapon damage and can modify that. So anyway, really straightforward. If you've played a war game before, it's going to make a lot of sense. If you haven't played a war game and you're interested in World War II, this is Bolt Action. Really great game to jump into. So flipping through here, we keep going. Section goes over the weapons. That's all really straightforward. Talks about the MG42. Again, historical context. I really appreciate that. Weapons chart. This is what I was talking about here. Number of shots, range, armor pen. That modifies that die roll. So if you're firing, that's how you get the 7+ on a D6. So you can actually take out heavy armored stuff. So weapons chart, types of weapons, talks about the different, obviously, weapons with rifles, pistols, submachine guns, assault rifles, it's stuff like that. Light machine guns, heavy machine guns, all those. Automatic cannons, mortars, anti-tanks, all that good stuff. How that all works in game turns. Fixed weapons. That is a thing in this game, so firing arcs for specific weapons do come into play. High explosive rounds, indirect fire. Then we get into the brutalness of close combat. I want to call it too real fast. The art in this book is really nice. This is, I think that's from the Osprey guys. They do a lot of the historical games, historical artwork type stuff. So some of this stuff may look familiar if you've ever wandered into a model shop and checked out the historical section. So a lot of cool stuff in there. Yeah. Assault rules, very straightforward. Declare your target, target reacts, measure the move distance, and move the models. Fight the first round. This is where it gets a little different. The attackers hit first, defenders take casualties, defenders then roll to damage back, and attackers take casualties. Loser surrenders and is destroyed. Resolve draws if there are a draw, if there is a draw, and then the winner regroups. So how do you attack? So we'll get to that real fast. You declare your charge, you move in to base contact. For each guy that makes it the assaulter of the first round of combat, they get 1 assault die. Now, you can get more assault die if you have close combat weapons, but I'm not going to get into that. This is just basic stuff. They get 1 attack die, and then you roll to damage like you would the shooting. Shooting damage die table is here. So here's the kicker, though. In assault, all hits, all close quarters attacks against other infantry or artillery crews hit automatically. So you don't actually roll to hit in this game. You just roll to see how many guys bite it. So, and then again, attackers do attack first, defenders remove casualties, and then attack back. So it's pretty brutal as far as close combat goes in this game. It's a really big make or break type of thing. And the headquarters section goes over what exactly the HQ does to the game. Most of the time they add dice to the command pool there, so you have extra orders, and also you have a higher chance of being activated for the turn. There are medics, forward artillery. This is kind of neat. You can call in artillery barrages, smoke barrages, airstrikes, all that good stuff. This talks about the M1 Grand, which is one of my favorite guns. But it's, again, the top secret thing. More historical context. I like that. Flak, you can call in air supports, so that's pretty cool. And then if your guys have flak, if you're getting shot at from an air support, you can actually fire back. So there is AA in this game. Then it gets into special rules, which again, just kind of a per unit, per special ability. This is your index of, if you have this ability, this is what that ability does. Pretty straightforward. Artillery, this goes over more of the artillery rules and how that affects the game, fixed firing and stuff like that. So vehicle section, again, talks about all the special rules you need for playing vehicles, how vehicle pinning works, moving, shooting, all that good stuff specific to vehicles. And then assault for vehicles and all the good stuff. Same deal for the buildings, all that stuff. Blowing up buildings, leaving buildings, how that works. If you want to get into all the nitty-gritty shooting from buildings and all that good stuff. Flamethrowers against buildings, probably super effective. Bunkers. And then we get into actually playing a game, how that works with point values, the different sizes of the game, how to set all that up, do the different battle scenarios, and the different scenarios within that. So. Then again, the book has 6 scenarios, and I believe there are rules for kind of making up your own scenarios, which that's part of the fun for me anyway. Cool part about it, again, later on there's the timeline section, and they kind of encourage you to pick some of those battles and almost reenact them. So force selection just goes over guidelines to actually how to build your army. Pretty straightforward there. It's a basic setup for force selection rules for some other stuff. So army list, I'm not going to go over each one, but that's your basics of what each army has. Again, it covers the Germans, the Americans, the British, and the Russians, all those different forces to choose from. I believe this covers early through late war. This kind of gives you different information for those units. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but they're all there. If you're familiar with at all with the World War II games, there's a ton of different units, and of course they also have the army books, which I mentioned earlier, that go into even more detail and cover even more stuff there too. So it's a big section of the different tanks, artillery, all that fun stuff. It's a lot of information, but it's also in totally full color. There are different model picks that go throughout, showing off the different art and the cool scenery picks too, which I really like. It's pretty cool. And then the timeline, again, this just goes over the full timeline of World War II, starting from 1939 all the way to the end of the war in Europe. So, yeah. And it actually goes through Okinawa. Actually goes through the whole war. So yes, invasion of Japan, which never happened. So that's all covered through the timeline. So it's really cool. I like this little blurb about Audie Murphy. That was neat. Appendix 1. This is the Wargaming history. Kind of talks about historical reenactment for the war games, stuff like that. So cool stuff there. And then of course Appendix 2, this talks about multiplayer games and how to do a multiplayer game of Bolt Action. So you can have more people than just you and a buddy. You can have you and lots of buddies playing. So pretty cool there. But that's the general rundown of Bolt Action, the rule book for Bolt Action. Definitely think it's worth the 34 bucks to pick up if you're interested in Bolt Action. It is a nice piece of work there. Congratulations to Warlord and Osprey Publishing. This book is totally worth the money. If you're interested in Bolt Action or World War II wargaming, this is a great place to start, and it's something you can show off to the friends and get them interested in World War II history as well. So that's another review. AdamHarry from BoLS signing off. Hope you have a good one.